Woody. Let's get Skylar in here so we can start talking. Happy Monday. Oh, I should get a water. Uh-oh, stand by. Here we go. There she is. Hello, Skylar. Skylar, let's turn this guy off.
Goodbye, goodbye.
Hello. Welcome to Keeping It Real. What is safe anyways? This is my co-host and producer, Skylar Shagavac, in the house tonight, who has catnipped her cat into oblivion, so he won't be crawling across the video, maybe. So here we go. And tonight we're talking... What?
We are maybe safe from the cat's noises tonight.
So I want you to know, so I do my show on Tuesday with Monica Morton over at Strong Boss Bitches, and whatever that little noise is, it was happening on our show too. It sounds like a... And I thought it was your cat, and it must not be because I could hear it over on that show as well. So not really sure what that is, but...
Gotta be you, the only problem.
I'm the issue. So tonight we are talking about what is safe anyways. And it was funny because I actually got the idea of this show from your generation. Because when I was posting to TikTok, all these millennials were commenting, I feel safe here. Hi, Wendy. Welcome to the show. If you have any questions, just feel free to hit the speaker or raise your hand or whatever it is that we do here.
Leave a comment.
Skylar will bring you up on stage. But all these kids, all these 20-somethings were, and maybe 30-somethings also, were saying, I feel safe here. And I had no idea what they were talking about outside of, like, I wasn't going to be attacked or whatever. And so I started talking to some 20-somethings about, like, what is this concept of safety? What are all these kids talking about feeling safe? And so I started asking around, and the general idea that I got back was that your generation, the 20 and 30-somethings, because the fact that most of you are so open-minded, because you've been so aware of LGBTQ and different, just, racism, and you guys are just so aware of so much and so accepting of so many different types of people, wherein my generation was not as accepting of all of these. Like, I remember being in high school and there were, like, rumors that 2 girls were lesbians, and it was just like, oh my God, like, it was like, I don't even know if I knew what it meant, to be perfectly honest with you. And so now that's just like old hat. And so when your generation is around maybe my generation or other generations who are more judgy, less accepting, they feel, quote, unsafe. They feel that they're not allowed to be the full breadth of who they are as a person because of fear of judgment, to be honest with you. And so that I found just amazing. And so now I've taken that in my own experience and I'm learning about how I feel safe and what that means. Go ahead.
The only thing that I was going to say is that I wouldn't necessarily specify it just to generational wise. Safe spaces can be a safe friend group, or I think a lot of times we can compare it for your generation to broaden that perspective of work friends versus your real friends, of different kind of conversations and places that you can have and feel a certain type of way. And I think we labeled this space safe, this little zone as safe by meaning I can express myself, I can feel and express love for others and not feel that there's going to be any type of judge for any love given anywhere. So I
Yeah.
feel like that's the safe bubble, to put it in a generational mindset.
It's just an interesting new word. And because this is such an interesting, I found it to be a very interesting concept because I never really quantified safety. I never really categorized it and then tried to figure out like, who do I feel safe with? Do I feel safe with my parents or friends or my husband? What does it feel like to be safe or unsafe? When do I feel safe? What are the parameters of feeling safe? And when I feel safe, what happens? And I really found it so interesting to kind of break it down because now I'm starting to look at my relationships in a different way because I used to look at family. It is what it is. You have to tolerate it. And or alternatively, this family person judges, so I'm just not going to share. And now I recognize that the inability to share is feeling unsafe. The fear of scrutiny is that fear of a knowing that I am in an unsafe relationship or an unsafe conversation to share or be vulnerable. And it's allowed me to compartmentalize my relationships more clearly based on understanding that some are safe, some are unsafe. Then that calls for vulnerability or that calls for pulling back because I just really never thought of it that way. I just kind of was willy nilly out there, putting myself out there and getting hurt. And now I'm recognizing it more based on this one wacky word of safe. It's so interesting.
Now, do you think that that kind of like that not having a word or a label for it, for that feeling during childhood, because I mean I grew up in a different era. I grew up in a place where you knew what was safe, you knew what was good, you knew where you could tell your feelings to. Do you think that that kind of mushed the lines between who you saw as partners? Do you think that this space of seeing your family as family, do you think that you looked for partners that were the same because in your brain that's what you saw?
Very, very possible. And the other thing, as you were just saying, that is in my world, family equated to you be open.
Mm-hmm.
You should be comfortable. And it's kind of like with TikTok and all of the social media opening up the words of narcissist, empath, trigger, trauma response, people pleaser. That's an old one. But all of a sudden, we're being privy to, opened up with all of these new words and concepts. I didn't know what gaslighting was until very recently. And now I always knew, I'm like, I just want to walk around with a recording device because anytime I say something or you say something, not you, Skylar, but the person's, and then I
Mangled.
never said that. I never said that. And you're like, I'm going crazy. Yes, you did. And it's like, no, I never said that. And I'm like, oh, well, I'll just start walking around with a recording device and then you can't deny it. Now I recognize
Because
that
you don't have a word for it,
I didn't have a word for it.
it just seemed normal.
It seemed normal, it seemed insane, but now when I even do it to myself, right? When I gaslight myself and go, it's not that bad. I'm like, I'm doing it because I have a definition. I have clear-cut boundaries and an idea around what gaslighting is, when I'm gaslighting myself, when my husband might be gaslighting me. And that's not that he's a bad person, but if he's like, well, it wasn't, no, it was that bad. Oh, it was, no. And so now because there's a language for it that's very, I don't know, accessible, Now all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I know what that is. I know what's happening to me. I know I'm not mentally insane or whatever. This is a real thing that's happening to me in this moment. And I think with the word safe, I've started to recognize that that is an actual feeling. It's a place where you go and all of a sudden you can be silly or you can tell your dark secrets or whatever it is, or you can even talk about your day without being jumped on, And so I just think that having these words has been a game changer, I think, for everybody that's, involved in, this movement of understanding mental health, mental illness, and where we're headed as a society.
Now, with this safe space, do you think that, like for me, I kind of see I have almost different safe spaces. Like maybe this group I can talk about my spiritual feelings, and this is a very move forward group. And this group I can talk about LGBTQ rights and everything like this, and have free speech and that type of thing. Do you think that it's okay to have different safe groups where maybe it's not, we're not going to talk about religion over here, but we're going to talk about it over here? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, and in the Black community, this concept was introduced to me, and I also never understood it, but they call it code switching. And it's where you go in and out of different, using different types of language. So you would use uh, more, business language at work. And then you would talk a different way, as we all do with our friends. And so I never again compartmentalize these concepts of switching in and out of different personalities, different way of speaking. And you're learning that so much right now, owning your own business, that, the way you talk with your friends on a Friday night is profoundly different than when you're over there interviewing someone for a job. And so you're doing that. I don't know if it's appropriate for white people to borrow the word code switching, but the concept was introduced to me. And so I paid attention to it and started to pay more attention to it. So yes, like we are going to go in and out of places with certain people about certain subjects that we know I can talk about this with. And as soon as I start talking about that, interestingly enough, it also can be a very negative thing because of the fact that you might feel very comfortable being racist with some people. You might feel safe to be racist or anti-gay or, whatever, bigoted in one way, shape, or form. And so we also find those safe spaces as well, unfortunately, for a negative purpose, but all in line with exactly what you're talking about. And I was watching this series of TikToks last night. This gal, she's a internal investigator. I believe it would be for like the police, and she was talking about how she just did this internal investigation with this whole group. It sounds like just a huge group of places, and they were talking about. This is so interesting. This is so in line with what we're talking about here. They're talking about grooming. Now, grooming is usually a negative word where you slowly kind of see how far you can get with a person by crossing a line a little bit, waiting to see what happens, crossing a line a little bit. And she was talking about workplace grooming, where you might be like, oh, that outfit looks really nice on you. Nothing is said. Oh, wow, you look great today. Nothing is said. And you just keep pushing the boundary. And that's kind of what we do with safe spaces, but in the positive way is we see how far we can get with like talking about religion, talking about spirituality. When we introduce ourselves and you say, hi, my name is Meredith, I go with, I use she, her. That instantly is an invitation to someone that, uses different pronouns or not and says, hey, I am a safe space for you. Just by saying, hi, my name is Meredith, I use she, her. Boom, safe space, right? there's that, all of a sudden you've invited them into that place. So it's interesting as we're talking about this, the way that the conversation is evolving into positive, safe spaces where good things happen, how we get there, how we learn that it's safe, right? And that goes back to dating, or even dating a friend, right? Where you share a little bit, then they share a little bit, and then you share a little bit. And so we kind of have this dance that goes back and it says, are you safe? Are you
Mhm.
safe? I just love this conversation. It's so good.
Now, so with friends and everything, we can kind of play that game of dipping our toes in the water. Now, what if we're in a family and it's an unsafe family?
Yeah.
How do we know what we can? How do we figure out how to find out what our parameters of safe is? Even if we have to draw like a super jig-jag circle, you know what I mean? Like if we have to find something that's safe, how do you go about doing it? You're stuck.
So, and by the way, anyone that's watching, feel free to raise your hand, come up on stage. If you have a question, go ahead and pose your question. We'd love to hear from you. Um, So it took me years to understand that some family members were not necessarily safe. I would just kept putting myself into the fire over and over again. And I always thought that if I showed up kind, if I showed up nice and vulnerable and loving and gracious and a good hostess, and everything was perfect. This goes back to people pleaser, right? If
Gave
I
your
sing
all.
and dance, right, just enough, then the person that I am having this relationship with in my family or likewise would show up opposite but equal, right? You come at me, I come at you, we meet in the middle, you're going to
Perfect
be
world.
kind. Right, perfect world. And it took me, unfortunately, decades and decades and decades of failure and being hurt to recognize that not everyone is going to show up like me. You know, rose colored glasses to the nth degree of faith in people. And so I would say to someone, if you are starting to recognize that when you show up with someone that they cannot meet you, you need to start paying attention that that person is not capable of being safe for you. And then you need to adjust your vulnerability, what you share, your expectations. I mean, there's so much that goes into even expectations. And it was funny because you were having a conversation about some friends that you have that were coming over, and you kind of geared yourself up for your expectations. It was kind of like you were gearing yourself up, you were readying yourself for a situation. And so you're like, okay, I know what this is going to look like, I know what this is going to feel like. And so I am going to meet them where they show up versus I'm not going to show up here and then have them show up here and be disappointed. And I think that this is all in the conversation of safety, is not throwing all of your eggs in one basket, all of your heart at a person, place, or thing, and then walk away going, what the hell just happened?
I think a good point that you bring up there too, and I want to draw that back to, is what you talk about, especially with family members, because I think it's a huge thing to think that every family member has your best interest in mind and would never share XYZ with XYZ. And I
Right.
think it's really important as you get older and as you go through life, as you reach into that 16, 17, even going into your early 20s, like you don't have to share
Totally.
you don't have to share your salary anymore. You don't have to share what you're doing on the day to day, your location. Like you need to set those boundaries between, am I telling them who I'm like dating because are they going to craziness? You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
feel like a big part of this is also figuring out what you're sharing about yourself, because yourself it's a privilege to know stuff about you. That is a safe space.
100%. And it took me a while to figure that out as well, because I started to recognize, and you and I have worked through a lot of this together, because I tell people all the time, you think parenting a 2-year-old's difficult, wait till they're 22. It's way worse, because they're out there and you're like, have no control. You have no say so. And they're just willy nilly running around the planet. And so I look at it and I say to myself, when you share something with anyone, you inherently, socially, American wise, are inviting judgment and opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I got my hair cut today. There's never going to be silence after that. It's going to be like, oh, I didn't notice. Or, yeah, oh, yeah, it does look nice. Or, oh, I thought you were growing it out. Or, oh, I think I kind of liked it like down here. No matter what, as you start, and I noticed this when you guys were little, and I would share, oh, Skylar's doing this, and Cody's doing that, and Emerson's doing that. It's an automatic invitation, especially to family who take privileges based only on being a family member, that when I say, oh, Skylar had a rough day at school today, her teacher gave her a C on a paper or whatever, it's like, all teachers are idiots. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I wasn't expecting that. I was just sharing. And so I am super aware that whatever I put out, especially to family, unfortunately, I am inviting their opinion. I am sharing and opening. It's like, here is my life. I am going to show you this. I'm going to tell you that. And because that's what a conversation is.
And I think something funny that this brings back to that I do that makes you mad, but I do because safe spaces. I just do stuff and then tell her after I do it. Like tattoo, dyeing the hair, buying the cat. I'm like, hey, I bought a cat last week. And she's like, what? And I'm like, you can't offer judgment if it's already passed.
Well,
like baby names.
You would think, so you know me, but there are many parents that I have talked to, or actually kids that I have talked to, that they have shared the undoable, 100% undoable, and still get the litany of judgment and criticism and backlash. So trust me, just because it's already done, that's our relationship. Just because it's already done means absolutely
still backfire.
I mean, I'm talking pregnancy, already done, bun in the oven. Like, forget it.
But I think this is also where you have a good point too, of where it draws a line of you got to cut them off. Like, just because family or friends or this, when it becomes such not a safe space to be in, when it becomes you have no way to zigzag around them, you have no way to meet them halfway and figure out how to make it safe.
Yeah.
You don't have to stay there. I mean,
Right.
I think that you showed me this in yourself, and family is family, but that doesn't mean that they have to be there.
No. And let me say this too. Inside of this conversation of seeing a safe space in other people, I think it's also part of this conversation is how to be a safe space for others. So not only should you be looking for a safe space in your friends, in your family, figuring out who is and isn't safe by the wiggle in. Okay, I shared that. They didn't judge that, and going from there. But it's also, how do we be a safe space for others? And I just had this conversation with someone last night where they were having an issue in a situation with another woman. And I said, look, you cannot talk about another woman's appearance. To you, it might be nothing, but to them, it might be everything. It might be the Achilles heel of that person. So how are we a safe space for people of color, for other women, for the LGBTQ plus community, for people that are going through a hard time, for people that are ill? And I would love to eventually write a book on my experience going through breast cancer, because a lot of people I learned had absolutely no clue how to work with someone that was sick. They had no idea what to do. And as I went through breast cancer, I was really paying attention to what is it that I could use right now? What is it that would have been helpful? How to do this? Because so many people have, maybe I was their first experience with illness and the big C, right? And so teaching people how to be safe for us. You taught me how I needed to be, if I wanted to, right? Safe for you, which is don't tell me how to live my life. And so I went, oh, I can do that. That's it. And so to the point where I'm like, are you sure you want my opinion? Are you positive? Because I don't want to become unsafe for you ever. It's super important for me to be safe for my kids and my husband and my friends.
But to bring it back to both points, I feel like whenever you really got under yourself and you really felt supported when you were going through your cancer, it was when someone else who had gone through it supported you.
Yeah.
100% of the time, every gift, every meal, every book, everything, it was because they knew what you needed.
Yeah.
So I feel like for me in our relationship,
or had a friend who had just gone through it, and they knew exactly, just like, drop it off and leave. Don't stay, don't come in, don't ask for a thank you, don't even, just drop and go. Like, that to me was a game changer. Huge.
And I think, oh my goodness, I just lost my point. What was the second thing we were talking about?
Oh, sorry.
Us. So I think a big thing with us is that, so those people had to get taught how to be that safe space. Yeah. I had to teach you how to be that safe space. But I think for me, that also taught me how to deal with other people, because I watched what made me feel good. I wiggled in that spot and was like, how do I do this? Because I don't know I don't know what's wrong here. I don't know why I don't feel safe with my mom. She's my best friend in the entire world. I don't know what's going on, like what's happening. So I feel like that takes some deep self-reflection to look upon yourself and say, what's not safe here? And then it was just the judgment of not being able to be myself. So I think a big thing on that is also, you might have to tell someone how to be safe.
Yeah.
Like, they might not realize it. And it might also take some self-reflection on your behalf to figure out what's going on and where that wall is there for you.
100%. And that I love so much that you said the word judgment, because as you were speaking, that's what I kept saying. So you can be a safe space for other people when you stop judging, when you stop controlling, fixing, altering, whatever, giving your opinion on, and allow everyone to be themselves, which goes full circle to the beginning of this conversation, which is the 20 and 30-year-old generation, how I see it, is not as judgmental as my generation, because we were not privy to all of these different things as you guys. Like, you guys are aware of so many different lifestyles. And when I was growing up, we didn't know about all of this stuff. There was not this amount of information that was just constant. Now it's like, oh, there's a guy walking down the street in a tutu and 7-inch stilettos, and so I wonder where they're going.
I think it's the funniest thing in the world when you go on internet and people are like, did you ever as a kid like water bend in the water? And like 30,000 people respond and they're like, I thought I was the only one.
What is this word? Water bend?
Like just stupid stuff in the shower. Like when you put your arm and all the water goes down it, or like just stupid stuff that like you just think, because you're in the shower, you're by yourself. It's just stupid stuff you think no one else in the entire world does. Right. And you might have not had the access to have 30,000 or however many people go, same bro. I'm just as weird. I'm just as goofy.
Right. How would you ever feel? And so now all of a sudden everyone's running around recognizing that they're not weird, that it is okay. Like, that mean girl mentality is almost so far in the past. I mean, I know it's not, but it's getting far in the past, because it's like, No, dude, we're all weird. And so, like, let's just be safe for everybody. And, I really hope it's trickling upwards towards the older, people, my generation and everything, where we don't have to level ourselves as being better than, less than, whatever it is, based on basically anything, because we all want to feel that we could be vulnerable, that we could be different, that we're not going to be judged. But I think that this starts also, and I think I did a podcast on, judgment starts at home. The way that you feel about yourself, the way that you talk to yourself, the way that you judge yourself, your body, your hair, your abilities, your intelligence, your career, whatever it is, the way you talk to yourself is the way that you look at the world. It's the same lens, the same critical lens. And so when you find yourself, I love this conversation. When you find yourself out and about in the world, and Skylar is the best at this, and you are either critical or you are a hype girl, that is how you speak to yourself. If you are critical to yourself, and vice versa. If you are a hype girl to the world, it's because you're a hype girl to yourself. So all of this really starts with you. It starts with each one of us and the love that we have for ourselves, wanting to pull everyone in and feeling just as good. And I really think that that's what I was kind of tapping into, or what I do tap into on my TikTok page, is that feeling of safety. By the way, if anyone has a question, anyone wants to make a comment, please feel free to come up and ask a question or have a comment about where you do and don't feel safe and what it means. But honestly, Skylar, this all starts at home. And that's why that TikTok, because if there's anyone that's negative or starts fighting on my page,
Wow.
instant block, because I don't want people to feel judged. I don't care about views. I don't care about the followers. I want people to know that they can comment anything here, there, or anywhere in my social media, and that they will be protected for being vulnerable or sharing. And I think that that's huge.
100%. 100%. I feel like just the backing of making yourself feel good. I put on my Instagram story the other day. It was a quote, and it was, make somebody smile today, but remember that you are somebody. And like so many people swiped up on my story and was like, thanks for the reminder. And I put that up there just being like, this is kind of silly, but also kind of cute, not thinking too much of it, because like you said, I'm my own hype queen. I could be walking around in Crocs and an oversized sweatshirt and be like, yes, queen, okay, okay. But some people just don't think that way. Some people don't think, I need to put the self-work in. I need that self-love, positivity, care, because you ain't going to always get it from the outside.
And honestly, I'm seeing a big change. You used to walk around the world and, it was like side eye or, the look up and down. And now I'm finding, and you've seen it when we're out, like yesterday or Saturday, we went downtown Chicago, and I like literally get out of the car. We're standing behind the car waiting for Jim to park. And this woman's like, oh my God, your hair, and we all stop and we're trying to listen. I'm like, oh, thank you so much. Meanwhile, Brock and Emerson are literally almost getting hit by a car because we're not focused at all. But we're starting to see more and more people vulnerable to give the compliment, vulnerable to not waste the happy, kind thought. And I'm seeing more and more women especially want that safe space, recognizing that none of us are in a competition. If I succeed, that does not mean that you cannot succeed. If you succeed, that does not bring me down.
But I feel like that's a very, 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 and Kleber will always say this. Anyone I meet down here will always say this. It's a Northerner thing. Because Kleber the other day, was telling me about how I told a simple story. It was something stupid like sharing my lunchbox food or something. And he told me it was so interesting. Actually, it was sharing my homework. I told him about how I used to just like give my homework out because I didn't care and homework didn't actually mean anything and what does it matter? I had to do it anyway. And
Right.
he's like, you tell me so many stories of people sharing things with you, you sharing things with other, and in the north people genuinely want to lift each other up. He's
Hmm.
like, I feel like in Florida it was always like, let me step and climb and climb and step and climb and step. And
People
I
pleasing.
completely see that in the sense that people look at me like I have seven heads when I'm like, oh, girl, your nails are amazing. I love your top. You look gorgeous today. Like, people think I'm like the end all greatest being human, me, whatever. And I'm like, no, like I'm from the north. Like this, we just talk to people and we want to share our lives and we want to interact. Like we want to have human to human experiences because is what makes us human. That's what makes us fun and connect. And
But see, that's the thing is, it goes back to it starts with you because you do that and the butterfly effect, and then the next person feels good, and then they do that, and then they realize, wow, that really does make a difference. I mean, I have started to recognize how profound talking and sharing and doing these things matter. I mean, a day a week does not go by that I do not get a message from someone, you changed my life. I was going to kill myself and now I'm not, or I was so depressed, or I had an abortion and you changed my entire way of looking at that. And it really does make a difference to share and to help and to be kind. And this starts with each one of us. Each one of us is responsible, in my opinion, of changing this world and being the light. And it takes 1 second. You never know if while you're out and about tomorrow, right? And someone is walking down the sidewalk or is at the grocery store, that they are going through something horrific. I was driving to get my mammogram the other day, and it's funny because Jim can always tell when it's mammogram time because I get real wired up and I don't even realize I'm doing it. I just get real like high energy, and I'm like he calls me a cat on a hot tin roof. And so I messing with him and throwing his pillow off the side of the bed. I mess with him all the time. And then I come in the bathroom and I'm like, and he's like, what in the hell is wrong with you? You are a crazy person. And I'm just like, yeah. And he's like, why are you about? And I'm just like, you want me to make you feel? He's like, you need to stop. You're going crazy. I'm like, want me to make you feel bad? He's like, not really, but what? And I'm like, it's mammogram day. He's like, oh, I should have known. And so, but it's so interesting because like I'm driving down the street, I'm going to get dry cleaning, I'm going to do all of these activities, and my mind's occupied. Am I going to get bad news? Because they tell you right then and there with these, mammograms now if you had cancer, and like we saw something, and so I know that this information could be coming, right? And so you are a cat on a hot tin roof. You never know who you're encountering, what they're going through. And I really try to have a safe space and say, be kind to people, because you sent me that. You sent me that meme that said, when you encounter anyone on this planet, you should just basically consider that you are meeting a broken person who has been through
broken
major
person.
trauma.
No one has made it through this earth unscathed.
Unscathed.
No,
Unscathed. No one. And so
everyone's broken.
right, as you meet everybody, I don't care if it's the barista at Starbucks or if it's the gal that's bringing you your dry cleaning or whatever it is, understand that no one is unscathed. And you don't know if they just got the worst news. And so we need to start protecting each other. And this is a rough world. We have gone through 2 years of COVID and now, I don't know, a war this week. And so I think we need to start paying attention to, what it is that people are dealing with.
I love what Jody just said because I was literally about to bring up something just like this. Jody said, love this. If it weren't for a couple ladies I met encouraging me during my weight loss journey, I don't think I could have done it. Jody, I was literally just about to bring up the same exact point. The day before I quit my job, a girl in my sorority that never talked to, just was in my sorority, knew of her. She reached out to me. I have chills. She goes, I just want to let you know. Oh, I'm going to cry. I was hysterically crying when she sent me this. I was literally like, it was the biggest change in my life. I was like, do I quit my job? Do I work for myself? I don't know what to do. Pulling my hair out. And this girl out of nowhere created a safe space for me. And she goes, I just want to let you know I think you are the baddest bitch I've ever seen. You are living your life for you. You are doing what you want. Like, she's like, obviously, I'm just seeing the inside. I mean, the outside in, but she's like, you are one of the coolest people I have ever, like, not hyping myself up, but this is just what she said here. And I just remember feeling like, holy shit, I can do this. Like, okay, I can finally do this. And she had no clue what I was going through. Jody, with your experience with the workout ladies, what was, I mean, just pure love out of that?
I don't know if she can hear if she has the microphone. I'm not sure. Does she have the mic?
I don't think so.
I'm not sure either. She should be able to talk.
Can I talk? Can you
Yes,
hear me?
you can, Jody.
Oh. Okay, what was it that you asked, Skylar?
Just with like the workout ladies, like getting you motivated, like just that push. What did that?
Oh my gosh, it's what I needed because I've never done anything that hard in my life before besides give birth to 4 children. And and I had to do it for health reasons and everything, but this core group of ladies that I met during this and everything, they were just like, "You're looking great. You're doing so well. You're so strong, and keep going." And when I hit my weight loss goal, they took me rock climbing and everything just to celebrate. So it was, having that camaraderie when you're doing something like that for yourself, and that's so hard, just to have a cheerleader on the sidelines, kind of knowing what you're going through was the biggest help ever.
Yeah, and as you're saying that too, Jody, it's like, and now you can see when someone else is on that journey, you could be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to pay it forward. And it's not even that you're thinking about it. You're just that person that's going to just do that thing. You know what I mean? It's just going to be natural because you're like, oh, I remember when I was going through that. And I'm going to make sure and be kind to my friends as you would be, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. It's so important when women encourage each other without that competition. Like if somebody else was lifting more weights than me or losing weight faster than me, I wasn't angry. I was so happy for them and so proud of them. It's just a wonderful feeling.
And that is so healthy too. Like when I post about this all the time, like if you are bitchy or if you're over there judging other women, that is an instant moment to check yourself.
Yes.
If you are not being kind and loving to other women and hyping them up, even if it's only in your brain, you need to check that. Because that lives inside of you, that judgment. So that is so huge. I love that you just said that because it is so true. When you do see someone, killing it, yeah, sometimes you're like, oh, like, when your husband stops drinking like coffee for 2 days and loses 6 pounds and you like sweating it at the gym. You're like, how? But, it's so true, like to have that love.
Yeah, Lent is coming up, and Dan will give up sweets for Lent, and he'll drop 20 pounds, and I'll just want to kick him in the face. And it's not fair.
It is so not fair. It is so. No. But you know what? Jim is so good at that, and I agree with you because, like, I started lifting weights again recently and really getting back into the gym, and like Jim is so. He'll go, God, you can really start to see, your arms and your body look so great. And I'm over there, like, then I get in front of the mirror and I'm like, sort of. But just him saying that is like, I want to get back down there tomorrow. I want to get back down there tomorrow. That kindness. And when I was growing up, Jody, I know that you're younger than me, but still, you tell me this. When we were growing up, it was that negative push. It was negative. Like, well,
Yes.
gosh, you should lose some weight. I mean, those pants couldn't get any tighter. It was that. But I'm seeing now, as we are creating safe spaces for people, it's the positive push, the positive reinforcement instead of the negative. Ugh.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's just totally, in my opinion, shift. And I used to do that with Skylar. Like, she could barely spell her name, like her senior year of high school, but we never talked about it. We didn't discuss it, Jody. We just
Oh my God.
we talked about all the positive stuff that she was doing. But it's so
Yeah.
true. Like, if she's good at 99% of stuff, why talk about the 1% of negative? But in our generation, our parents raised us, at least, a lot of the people that I saw, with
Same.
the negative push, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And
Absolutely.
I think Jody does the best job at raising with the positive push. I mean, all I see is Jody's pages. I think she's the biggest hype queen to her kids. I just have to give her a shout out on that one. There is no bigger supporter than Jody to her children.
Oh, you're
Totally.
sweet. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming up on stage, Jody. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks
No
for coming this week. We
problem.
appreciate you.
Thank you.
Well, if anyone else has any questions or comments, Skylar, I think that this has been a great conversation. I love the way these things, she's not drugged enough. I love the way these things evolve, from a safe space of 20-year-olds to recognizing family safe spaces or unsafe spaces. And then again, being a safe space for other people and how important that is to, be that and teach. And I love what you said too, Skylar, is to sometimes we have to teach people. And when I did go through cancer, I did have to teach friends. I had to teach Jim, like, what I needed to feel safe, to be vulnerable and ask for help, because I am, the superwoman type A person. And so, we do have to teach people what we need sometimes. And if they can't show up in that way, then they're not safe. You play with it and until it stops. And if they can't do it, then you just, hey, now I know. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. Trust it. They're not joking, and so I think that's huge. The crazy cat. Well, everybody, I see Kristen and Deborah. Thank you guys so much for showing up. We saw Woody here earlier. Oh, there's Woody. Sorry, Woody. You're right there next to Kristen. Thank you guys so much for showing up again this week. We will be back next week. We're going to be talking about what, Skylar? Villain era?
We're going to be talking about the villain era. I'm so excited for this one, guys.
Yeah, she wanted to talk about this tonight, but she didn't let me know that. And I had already had
I actually let her know that like 5 days ago. It was just way too far in advance. I was way too excited. She never read the text message.
Yeah, I must have blurped over that text message. But next week, we're going to be talking about the villain era, which I love this. I'm personally going through the villain era. Skylar, are you in the villain era?
Yeah, I would have to say I'm in the villain era.
So come back next week and find out what the villain era is. Are you in your villain era? What do you think about the villain era? And is a villain era even the right term for it? For me, I don't think so. But
we need a better definition.
We are going to have to come up with a better definition. Trinity, come back next week. We're going to be talking about the villain era. Ask if you're in your villain era. And so come back here next week, Monday, 7 Central, 8 Eastern. Skylar will be back here discussing our villain era. Come up on stage next